AI can hand you the answer. It's often way faster than you will be able to find the answer yourself, but it cannot hand you the judgment to know if the answer is right and to know if it's right for your people, your context, and your timing. We already get this in everyday life. Without advanced technology, we inherently know to second guess some of the information that comes our way. That comes with discernment. So, for example, you're driving down the road using advanced technology like GPS, and it says turn left, but you look and there's a big sign that says the road is closed. Now, for one brief second, you're ready to trust the GPS and keep going. I had this exact thing happen to me when I was navigating downtown Dallas. There was a protest march that the GPS didn't know about, and it kept trying to force me to turn on roads that were clearly blocked to traffic. The machine had no idea that the road was closed. It only knew what it knew. I was the one who could see the sign. And that gap between what the tool knows and what you can see and observe and intuit, that is the most important skill that I want you to train for and to develop for yourself and your job right now. Welcome to this mini but mighty leadership lesson on discernment and judgment. This is part 2 of a 4-part series. If you missed last week, pause now, go check it out. The link is below in the description. It's going to help you get a solid foundation about what we mean when we say discernment and judgment. And consider subscribing to this channel, follow along, because we're going to give you weekly episodes that are designed to help you level up personally and professionally. So don't be that person. Don't fall for it. Don't listen to the GPS and go down the road that's closed. Instead, when you're collaborating with AI, which I believe is important, you've got to apply discernment and judgment, which is essential. It's critical. There is a story of an attorney who had about 3 decades of experience who used a GPT agent to research a brief. And he submitted cases that turned out to have fabricated quotes and citations. He had even asked the GPT to confirm that the citations were real, and it said they were, but it turns out that they weren't. Now, with 30 years of experience, I gotta believe he had some cues, some signals, some twinges, some indications that maybe that some of this data wasn't accurate, but he ignored that, so he did not apply discernment. And it turns out that the court case was dismissed and the lawyers were fined. And in a hearing where he had to testify about this, he said that he believed the tool could not make up data like this, and that if he'd known, he would have never submitted that. Yikes! I mean, I feel for him, but I feel this deeply because it's happening to so many of us. It can happen, it does happen, and right there, 30 years of experience just blown. His credibility is shot by this one instance of lacking discernment and using the wrong judgment. I don't want that for you. In fact, I want the opposite. I want you to be known for your credibility and your excellent discernment and judgment and your flexibility in working with AI and humans. That means you have to build your discernment and judgment skills. We've all got to learn, to educate ourselves, and to reiterate the acceptable working practices. Now, before AI, advanced technology, we would teach things about discernment and judgment so that we would have acceptable working practice with humans. We still need that. We need it as much as ever. But now we've got to add in the fact that we are collaborating between AI, advanced technology, and humans. So discernment and judgment applies to all of it. Now more than ever, we've got to look at multiple ways to confirm that data is accurate. In our last episode, you'll recall that we were talking about you acting as a delivery manager with a major product launch coming up. And you experienced a discerning moment in a team status meeting where you felt something wasn't right. The dashboard was green and most of the people in the room were all agreeing. And then one person, Marcus, your head engineer, who's always very verbose and has a lot to say, just nodded and went along with things. And you had a twinge. Now, why were you so quick to trust that green dashboard? And why were you so quick to dismiss Quiet Marcus? The dashboard is a tool filled with data that we've trained people to fill out. So we've trained ourselves to trust it. The status, in this case, this is not a brand new team. You've worked with these folks before. They know how to run the numbers. They're in the weeds of the project. You trust that they know how to submit an accurate status and note risks and issues along the way. The majority of the team is nodding along and saying, yes, we're on track. And you were very busy. You had a lot of other things going on. In addition, you've recently spent a lot of time talking about empowerment and accountability and training the team towards these. So you don't want them to feel undermined by second guessing the information they're presenting or that dashboard, right? I mean, this is what we do to ourselves as leaders. We present these arguments about why we shouldn't question or be curious. But the way we question, the way we are curious, Our willingness to investigate and go a little bit further, to trust the cues and signals, is what actually makes us a good discerning leader who makes great judgment calls. And when we exhibit that, we teach our team members to do the same. The challenge that we're faced with right now is that, as shown in a Harvard Business Review study, as tools get more powerful, the human part of decision making, of judgment, becomes even more important. The machine is raising the floor in how quickly we can get to data, how fast we can move, but your judgment is still the most important. It's the ceiling. The issue, what we're seeing in real life and in research, is that the people who most need to question the tool, the ones who are less sure of the task, are the ones who are most likely to just take the answer that's given from data, from AI, from advanced technology, and run with it, applying no discernment and no judgment. Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon studied knowledge workers and found that the more confident people are in AI, the less they think for themselves. But the more confident people are in their own skill, the more they will check or double check or validate. Now, this is a critical issue for us. It's something that keeps me up at night. Because if you've had the opportunity to gain experience with something, you're better able to notice your cues, to be discerning, to question, to go a little bit further. But as we bring people into the workforce who are not going to get experience because we allow AI to automate so much, they won't build up the knowledge. They won't have some of the cues that say, oh, well, I know that this step in the process is wrong, or I know that this answer is wrong because you forgot to consider this, that, or the other. That is fading away as we automate more. And we've got to figure out how to make sure that there's balance between it. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The more you trust the tool, the less you check it. That's the findings. But the more you trust yourself, the more you check it. And so the number one thing that all of us can do, whether we have a lot of experience in something or not, is to build our confidence, to be willing to be wrong, and to seek out alternative points of view. It just so happens that confidence is a humanity skill that we also talk and teach about at Boss at the Helm. I'm going to link some videos below in the description. So if confidence is something that you are working on, a skill that you actively want to build, you might want to check out those video episodes. So while we gain tremendous advantage from automating routine tasks and leaving exception handling to humans, we also make it more boring for them. And then we start to untrain people. They don't have enough experience going through the whole process and figuring out the answers themselves. And they are less able to deal with the exceptions. We're sort of creating a problem while we automate and get better at things. So we're depriving people of having routine chances to practice judgment, to learn how to do particular skills, to gain experience and strengthen it. This means more than ever, each of us has to be very diligent in teaching ourselves and gaining experience and in applying judgment. As leaders, we need to strengthen that for ourselves and our teams so everybody gets in the habit of being discerning and applying good judgment, strengthening those skills. We can't use AI to replace judgment. So I'll offer you this tool. It's a quick 30-second check. I call it the sign off, and it is blind spots, stakes, and signature. Blind spots. What did the tool assume that I either didn't tell it, or what information did it not have that it needed to consider, or what information did it consider that it shouldn't have? Stakes. What happens if this goes wrong? How important is it? And signature. Am I proud enough to sign my name on this? Am I willing to accept the consequences of going forward with this information? Let's look at this in the example we're using about the product launch. So the sign off, blind spots. The dashboard, which is all green, assumes that all the information was entered, that all the information was honest, and that it was accurate. What it has no way of showing you is if somebody chose not to enter information or chose to ignore certain facets of information to just put the best case scenario into the dashboard. Now, impact and consequences. We know that this is a major product launch. It's very critical to the company. It's got big consequences if you either miss the launch or if you launch and it fails. And that's very different in an impact perspective than, say, if you asked GPT to give you a recommendation for the best restaurant in town and you drive there, but you get there and realize that restaurant is closed today and GPT never mentioned it. So both of these actually can be helped by doing a little bit more due diligence, by asking more questions, by checking on some of the nuances or assumptions or information that are or aren't available. That's why when we talk about prompting, we say, what are the constraints? What shouldn't you consider, as well as what you should consider when you're putting together the information? So for the second step, for impact consequence, you've got to consider, what kind of timeline am I on? Are there multiple other crises that I need to deal with? Is there going to be a significant issue if we move forward with this and I haven't paused to check and make sure it's right. In the case of the restaurant, you have to go somewhere else. In the case of your product launch, by ignoring your cues and failing to do a little bit more due diligence before taking judgment calls and making decisions, you may end up with a much bigger consequence. And that leads to part 3 of the sign off, which is, would you sign your name to this? If you took the data or the answer or the green status just as is, does it feel ethical and accurate? Are you proud and willing to stand by it? Do you have the sense that this data is accurate based on experience, multiple POVs, and knowing that you're willing to accept the consequences if it turns out that you signed off on this and it doesn't go well? If you stall on any parts of this sign off, you want to pause and go back and investigate a little bit more. This is a signal to you, and it doesn't always have to be with the machine or with AI. Blind spots, impact, and your willingness to sign off, you can do that with your team on any form of data and big decision. I want you to start checking the work. Think critically. Here's a very simple example from my daily life. I asked AI to find me flights from Dallas to Auckland with the least number of connections because the local hub in Dallas is American Airlines, but their schedules seem to have no direct flights to Auckland. Now, AI came back and said, hey, it's great news. You're wrong, AK. There are direct flights on AA from Dallas to Auckland. Yay! And then I tried to find them. Yeah. Then I tried to find that so I could book it and I couldn't find it at all. And this is what I originally had told the AI agent. So I returned to the AI agent and I said, I need a direct link where I can book that exact flight. And it thinks and it comes back and it says, oh, you know what? Sorry, AK. That flight actually isn't available. It's planned, but it's not available for anybody to book. Really? Same thing actually happened this week. So my husband used AI to find some events that we might want to go to together this week. And the AI gave us 2 choices. I looked at the first choice and I was like, wow, that sounds fun. Let me see if I can book it. Couldn't find it anywhere. So I go to Google AI and I put in the same information that we've been given. And Google AI has same date, June whatever, but from 2 years ago. It's an old event. And a simple fact check in both cases helped me figure that out before we got too far down the line. Now, in either of these cases, the impact is not great. I didn't have any negative consequence. I couldn't book a trip to New Zealand that didn't exist. And I don't have to go to an event that doesn't exist. There's not that big of a deal. But what I wanted you to be careful of is something like what happened to this lawyer, where even though he checked with the GPT to confirm the cases were real and accurate, he got an answer that said they were. I want you to check multiple GPTs. And I want you to take it further. I want you to ask real people. Have you ever heard of X? In the case of the product launch, dig deeper. You've run multiple launches before. Look at your past experience. Have you ever had a dashboard all green, completely green, no yellows, no worries, nobody pitching up a concern? This close to a product launch deadline? It's pretty rare. So I want you to get curious. And curiosity is something that we have lessons on as well. I'll put a link below if you are looking to build your curiosity skill. We've got some videos to help you with that. I want you to go old school and just think about the sources that you would check. Pretend the power went out. You can't get to the internet. You can't get to AI. You can't even get to the central database. You can only get to the people around you and you can pick up the phone because it still works. And I want you to say, what would I do? How would I fact check this? Who would I consult? How would I prepare differently? And you don't have to do this in every case, but by doing it sometimes, it helps you keep those muscles strong so that it feeds into discernment and judgment. So this week, practice. An easy thing you can do this week. As you're asking AI for particular answers, I want you to check one thing that it tells you. Just one fact or number or claim, ideally one that would have the biggest impact or be the biggest pain if it were wrong, and just check it instead of going with the flow, accepting the answer as is. Even if you don't suspect that it's wrong, just go check it in some other sources and see what kind of answer you get. I'm going to take it a little further, then run that 3-question gate that I gave you, the sign off. Blind spots, stakes, and signature. When a recommendation comes to you this week from AI or from your team, just out loud, if you need to, double check the answer for each one of those. Are there any blind spots, any assumptions in this data? What are the stakes if it's not accurate? And would I be willing to sign off on this? And then quite a bit harder, something else you can challenge yourself to do is take something that you've handed off to AI already, something that you've automated or you regularly just push it to AI and have it do it, and do it for yourself end to end. Run that process. See if you still know the steps. See if you remember that you got to be careful at step 3, because if you're not, it will cause a problem. Just those things that you know how to do them instead of handing them off to AI. And that will help you build the muscle and help you think through and notice the steps as well as the output. And consider doing this every once in a while. If this is helpful to you, the free place to keep building is right here. We post new Mini But Mighty leadership lessons every week. This is part 2 of a 4-part series, so subscribe and come back to keep learning about discernment and judgment. These are human intelligence skills, and if you want to know more about human intelligence skills, there's a free download called the Unmachined Top 10 that you can get through the link in the description below this video. If you are a corporate executive watching this and realizing it's not one manager on your team who's accepting the confident answer, but maybe many managers and employees, then it's worth having a conversation. The skills I bring to companies through workshops and courses handles exactly this. We cultivate all managers so that they learn to apply the judgment that tools can't teach, and so that they become the trusted individuals that people count on to make the best call no matter the situation that they're facing. You can connect with me at bossatthehelm.com. AI can hand you the answer, but it cannot hand you the judgment to know if the answer is right for you, your people, your context, and your timing. That part is still yours, so I encourage you to protect it. Start with yourself. Lead yourself. Then lead others. Be a boss. And join us here next Friday, where we're going to learn about distinguishing signal from noise and building trust as part of discernment and judgment. By the way, I thank you for being here. Now is a great time to tap like and subscribe to this channel. We'll see you next week.